Hey guys, Lindsey here with another episode of A Quarter in the Couch, where we comb through life's couch to discover and find the hidden value and the hidden quarters that are tucked beneath life's cushions. I'm your host, Lindsey, tax strategist, business owner, a father in pursuit of constant personal growth. And today, I wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit more on my story and how I became a business owner. And I know some of you guys are watching and you're thinking, I want to be a business owner. I'm stuck in my dead-end job and I'm stuck in this rat race and I'm stuck in this corporate ladder climbing. How do I get out? Or graduating college maybe, and you're like, I just don't want to go work for somebody. How can I take the next step? Or what would the first step even be? And so I want to go through a couple of these things with you guys and explain to you a little bit more about my story specifically. Going back to my story, if you haven't watched the episode where I talked about resigning and I talked about starting the business, go back and watch that for sure, because that's going to have some real meat in it too. But this is going to talk a lot more about the things that I didn't cover in that video, and a lot of the things about how I decided what to do, how to do it, how I decided that I was going to go into the tax business and things like that. And so without further ado, let's get into it. In 2005, I joined a large firm and I climbed the corporate ladder in the hopes that one day I would take over the family business, right? The idea was that I was climbing the corporate ladder and I was learning all these different things. I was learning how to interact with high wealthy clients, how they spend their money, what do they consider value to them. But also I was learning leadership and management and working with a team and working with not just employees, but working with other professionals, other subcontractors, other attorneys, other accountants, trying to get a really great result for the clients that I was working with. And so it was a very toxic situation. It was a very toxic environment for me for a very long time. And in 2016, as you guys know, I left in 2019. It was a very tumultuous, torturous, problematic leave. It caused a lot of division with me and the boss. It was not fun. It wasn't pretty, and I had to do it out of necessity. If you want more of that story, go back and watch that episode. I cover all that in a lot of detail. But today, I wanted to cover a little bit more about if you were in my shoes, or if somebody is working a corporate job and they're trying to get out of this rat race and they're trying to get out of the stress. This is what we're going to be talking about today. And this is the first episode of a several episode series that I'm putting together of, once you decide to start a business, what's the next step? How do you structure it? How does the bookkeeping look like? When do you hire your first employee? And as we go through that series, we'll start to expand on each phase of business and how I've been able to work through my own business, as well as advise the clients that I work with on going through their businesses and scaling their businesses. So with that said, going back to my story, I worked in the corporate job for almost 15 years. Long before the time that I resigned, I was positioning to be my own boss. I was positioning to be my own business owner. And so here's the thought process that I had was, I want to be my own business owner. What kind of business am I going to be? Now, for a lot of you guys are already working corporate jobs. You guys are already providing value, and you just don't understand how to put other pieces together to form a whole product to sell to a client. I'll give you my story as an example. I do tax planning for business owners. Now, I have to not only go and find a new client, i.e. sales, but now I have to create a tax plan for them, i.e. fulfillment. And then once that tax plan is done and created, I then have to file a tax return to make sure that that result is what I promised them, to make sure that the value that I'm delivering is being delivered. Now, as part of a business, I also have to work on the finance piece. I have to send out an invoice to them. I have to collect payments from them. I have to track my expenses. I'm my own business owner, so I have to track all that stuff. Okay, so now you're sitting in a corporate job and you're saying, hey, Jeremy, how would that apply to me? Well, let me give you the story. Several years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, Tyler. He worked in a auto industry, in specifically in this one particular business, the fleet management business. And we had a conversation about him potentially becoming his own boss. And he said, I'm a sales guy for this big corporate world. And, we provide fleet management for companies and for construction companies, for big companies who needs, 50, 100, 200,000 vehicles, right? Southern California Edison is, the utility provider, and they have people who drive all these trucks. Well, this particular company serviced all of their trucks. And what the fleet management does is they take these cars and they do the oil changes, they do the tire rotations, they do the new tires. If it gets in a car accident, they manage the repairs, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of these companies that have big fleets of cars hire this other company to manage that fleet. Okay. So he says, Jeremy, how would I go into business? And I said, well, Tyler, you have the sales portion of the business down. Okay. All you need is the fulfillment portion of the business. Okay. So you can go find customers, and then, which I've talked about in another episode, sales 101, you don't have a business if you don't have sales. Okay. So you could fulfill all you want, but if you're not fulfilling for customers that sales brought in, you don't have a business. So what we talked about was, Tyler, you can bring in customers. The problem is how can you manage their fleet? Salespeople typically are not detail oriented. They're not savvy related to details related to organizations. They're sales. It's a completely different skill set. So if you're sales and you're listening to this, say, oh, I'm definitely organized and I have to be organized and savvy. Cool, great. You're one of the few. There are exceptions to most rules. You're the exception. What we designed was that Tyler would go and do the sales, and that he could manage someone's fleet. Now he understood at the time that there was a limitation as to his ability to manage that fleet, meaning he couldn't manage a fleet of 1,000 vehicles. He could manage a fleet of 50 or 30 or 100. But he could then hire people to help him manage and do that depending on the cash flow of the business. Now, when you start a business, sales, number one, is the biggest issue. Fulfillment, number two, is the third issue. Finance, there's the three pieces of business development, sales, fulfillment, and finance. Finance is the easiest one to cover. Okay. That's what I do for my clients. I cover their finance. You can hire somebody super cheap all over the internet. You can hire bookkeepers, you can hire accountants, you can hire all sorts of people to track your finances. Okay. You can hire me to create the strategies that save you money in taxes and grow your business. And you could also hire the company, Clarity Tax Advisors, to do the bookkeeping. But what is most important to your business is sales and fulfillment. Again, if you have sales and not fulfillment, you can fill in the gap. If you have fulfillment and not sales, you can't fill in the gap. You have to go get sales. So a business doesn't run without sales. Summarizing that whole story and comparing it to my own story, and possibly comparing it to your story as you listen here, he was in a corporate job and he was focused on sales and new business relationships. Once that new business came on, he passed that off and handed it off to a fulfillment person, known as usually a customer service representative or something like that, who managed the rest of that fleet through a very large team of people and a very wide network of vendors and everything else. And what we ultimately decided, we came up with a plan to say, if you go get customer accounts, you can then bring vehicles in. And then once you have vehicles brought in, there can be this transitionary process, 30 to 45 days, where during that 30 to 45 days, you can find someone to pay, to hire, to help you manage their fleet, to help you manage the vendors, to help you manage the subcontractors, and fulfill the value that you're promising to your account, to your client. So clients would come to him. They would say, hey, I have a fleet of 50 vehicles. You can manage them for me. Oil changes, tire rotations, paint jobs, etc., car washes, you name it, fuel. And we'll pay you monthly to manage this. So we figured out he's like, you know what? Now that you put the pieces together, I can do that. I can figure that out. That makes a lot of sense. Now, for me, it was similar in that I had to, when I was working, I was positioning myself, i.e., I created a separate company. Clarity Tax Advisors was around long before 2019 when I terminated my relationship with the prior company. And so I positioned for it. Now, I also strategized about it. And I thought, okay, so I need sales and I need fulfillment. At the time, I was doing both sales and a high level of fulfillment at my prior job. So, what I was responsible for was bringing in new clients and nurturing the existing clients to help generate referrals. And I was also managing the team to make sure that the tax planning and the structuring, the estate planning, the life insurance, and all the investments and everything else that we were doing, all the results that we were communicating to the clients, it was my job to make sure that the team was executing on all of that. So I was already doing the sales. I was already doing the fulfillment. Now, as part of the nature of the game, I manage finance for a living. So managing the finance piece was kind of a shoe-in. So from that perspective, the sales piece, as I started to strategize this, and as I started to figure out, okay, so if I want to transition from this company to my own company, I need sales. Where am I going to get the sales? Understand that I'm already working for a company in charge of sales. So how was I going to switch from selling for my previous company to now selling for Clarity Tax Advisors while working for the previous company? Wasn't going to happen. And so that's where the scary part came, is that when I decided to finally cut ties in 2019, that's when the sales had to kick in. I didn't have, as part of a sales process, you have to generate momentum. You have to generate relationships. You have to generate activity in order to nurture those relationships, so that those relationships can ultimately decide whether or not they should trust you with their finances. Okay. And so when you develop this momentum, it takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. It takes months, actually. Even and for it to get to a real maturation level of stability, I would even say it might even take a year plus. Okay. Now, as I'm working a corporate job, that momentum and that sales is happening for the previous job. When you leave, you have to start from scratch and generate new momentum for your own business. Okay. Understand? That's a 3-month runway, 6-month runway, 9-month runway. And that's if you're working your butt off to generate all the activity. All right. So I want you to think about this. If you're sitting in a corporate job and you've decided that, hey, the corporate job that I'm in now, I can continue to do for my own clients, and I can do the same thing, but now I'm charging the clients directly as part of my company. Let's say you're working as a contractor and you're working for a big company, and you don't like your leadership, you don't like your management, and you want to be your own boss because you want the freedom that comes with being your own boss. You want the freedom of schedule, you want the freedom of flexibility, which all those are myths, by the way, because if you leave your 9 to 5 working for somebody else, you end up working from 5 to 9 for yourself. And that's 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. for yourself. Now, it's temporary, but it is what it is. There's no question. You have to put the time in. Okay. So going back to the example, if you're a construction guy and you're working for a bigger contractor and you want a little bit more freedom and flexibility, you want to start your own business, how would you go about doing that? Well, you are already doing a skill set. You are already providing value to someone. Okay. So if you're an electrical contractor, you're doing electrical work for housing, for commercial, for whatever it is. And you could do that directly with someone. Now, the gaps that you're going to miss is, again, you have to partner with the sales team to go get your own clients. And then from there, you have to strategize. Okay, so why would a company want to hire only an electrician? Maybe they don't. Maybe they want to hire a team of electricians. Maybe they want to hire an electrician, a plumber, a framer, and a finisher, and all this other stuff. So maybe partner with those types of people and offer a full comprehensive package, right? In all circumstances, you need to think about what you're already doing and how that could scale into its own business. Unless you're a secretary in an office, it's really difficult to go and generate your own business being a secretary to other people. However, there's this business that if you are a secretary or if you're an executive assistant, then you could take that executive assistant role that you're doing and you can teach other people how to be really great executive assistants. So much so that as you start this reoccurring process, you start this coaching or mentorship program or something like that. Now you can start thinking about being your own boss. You say, Jeremy, well, I don't really want to sell my contribution. I don't want to sell my advice. I want to sell a product, or I want to sell something else. What would you say would be that advice? With today's use of AI and with the internet and the status that it is, you have the world of opportunity at your fingertips. Go in and have a very detailed conversation with AI, either ChatGPT, Perplexity, whoever your favorite is, and have that conversation to say, what type of business should I start? What type of things should I do? Now, one of the things that I've noticed in working with the businesses that I work with is everybody has a passion for what they do. Everybody, without a doubt, knows that they can make a lasting impact and they can provide substantial value, and that value has a positive impact for the people that are paying them. Okay. So that's a big deal. And I think that would be a good conversation to have at first. Follow a personal passion. What would a personal passion be? Maybe you like surfing. You start a surf school. Maybe you like snowboarding. You start as a snowboard instructor and you go from there. Maybe that's telling jokes or speaking. Today's day of social media, you have the power to do a whole lot of that stuff. You no longer have to be discovered as a singer. You don't have to be discovered by an agency. You can be a really great singer on social media and launch through that. Or you can go through and take the path that Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos did, and you can solve massive problems. Now, Jeff Bezos, there's internet videos flying around all over the internet about Jeff Bezos long time before, as he was starting Amazon, that he saw a 2,300% increase in the use of internet over the next 30 years. And that's why he decided to launch Amazon. Amazon, we know, is what it is today. It's a huge conglomerate. But if you recall back in the early days, it was only for selling books to college students. So you can go through and you can identify what the market needs, and you can solve a problem for the market. Identify the customer pain points, solve those pain points for them, right? Create that product that addresses their needs. Or, like I said earlier, you can leverage your professional experience with everything that you've got going on. You can start a business with what you are currently doing. Now, one of the things that I have in my show notes here, and I think is very important, is some of you may have heard the terminology, there's riches in niches. And what does that mean? That means that when you go really deep into one particular niche, people recognize you as an expert in that field, and you can charge a premium because now you've become an expert and you're not just a associate level. That's a big deal. You might sit back and say, you know what, Jeremy, you're throwing all this stuff at me. I am so confused. I don't even know where to start or where to begin. Even though you've thrown all these ideas at me. The last thing that I have seen be successful, actually, there's two of them. One of them is go and do a keyword search on what people are Googling, right? When you experience a problem, what's the first thing you do? You Google it. You search for it on the internet. You look at YouTube videos to find out what's going on. You're listening right now because you're trying to figure out the solution to a current problem that you have. Okay. Go to Google, and there's plenty of keywords. There's plenty of tools on the internet. Search Google for keyword search tools and see what people are searching for. And then possibly find a product associated with what they're searching for. Generally, when people search on Google, they're searching for a solution to a problem that they have. Hello, there's a red flag. There's a clue. You can create that solution and sell that solution to them so that they can solve their problem. Vis-a-vis, now you have a business. The last thing that I'll share about starting a business is, let's say that you've had a rough life, your professional experience is lacking, and you don't really have a whole deep level of skill set, or you don't have this, or you don't have that. You can teach other people how to overcome the things that you've been able to overcome in life. Now, Sunny Lenarduzzi, I have to give this credit to her. I am a member of her master classes. She is brilliant when it comes to this. It's called a hero story. A hero story is a story where you've had to overcome monumental odds in order to break through whatever that next level is. Whether it's a bad breakup, whether it's you got hit by a car, you got in a bad car accident, you faced a bunch of medical bill issues, or you faced a bunch of medical issues. How did you overcome that? People want to know. People are going through the same problems that you went through, and they want to know your advice on how to get through that. So that is another big, huge opportunity. And when you're starting this business, you're looking for what we call proof of concept. Proof of concept is when a business owner says, I have an idea for the marketplace that I'm going to sell, and then they sell it out to the market, and the market responds positively. That means that your concept now has proof that it has traction, that it has legs. When you look at all the episodes of Shark Tank, they all ask about the product, and what is one of the first questions out of any of the sharks' mouths? What was your annual sales? Because they're asking for proof of concept. Does the market want your stuff? So here's my tip and advice for that. Your product, if you're selling a product, and by the way, if you are the product and your advice is the product, you are the product, that's a product. That's still a product. The market needs to respond positively to whatever product you are selling. If they don't respond positively, change your product. What do I mean? I'm a tax guy. The market doesn't necessarily want to pay me to do tax returns because I charge too much. However, they want to pay me to help them legally reduce their tax bill. That's worth them paying me to do that. My product of preparing tax returns doesn't necessarily work because there's a dime a dozen tax preparers that'll do the job, that'll simply prepare a tax return for much cheaper. But the value that I bring, the product that I bring, is different than just filing a tax return. It's bringing strategy to the game. Okay. Now, let's talk about this in a little bit more simpler fashion. You buy keychains and you want to sell custom keychains on Amazon. Okay. Do keychains move on Amazon? There's tools out there that you can see how many keychains are sold off of Amazon. Maybe keychains aren't the product. Maybe you want to switch the product up to cup holders. Maybe you want to switch the product up to phone cases. Maybe you want to switch the product up to herbal supplements. I don't know. But you need proof of concept in your product. So this is good news for you. Your product doesn't have to be perfect. Get proof of concept before you know whether your product is perfect or not. And here's the other cool thing. Let's say that you launch, and this is where done beats perfect. Okay. Done beats perfect every time. This is very, very, very obvious that in this section of business, your product does not have to be perfect. It has to be done. It has to be sellable. It has to be ready to go. It has to provide value. Okay. Or solve a problem. Phone cases solve the problem where your screen doesn't crack when you drop it. That's a huge deal. You do this product, and let's say your product isn't done. Let's say your product isn't perfect. Well, it doesn't matter because now you have sales, and now you know that the market wants your product. So now you can take that and innovate your product and make it better and then resell it to the same customers that you have. Now, let's assume that it's a coaching program or consulting gig or advice or something like that. Okay. The feedback that you get from your clients means in and of itself that you are going to innovate your product. You're going to make your product more perfect. You're going to make your product as advice. Your product will become more perfect. Your market will tell you how to perfect your product, whether you know how to or not. I think that is a very critical piece, critical mass. I like the saying that you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And I want to emphasize this point because a lot of business owners, they get hung up on this. There are a lot of people who are trying to start a business. They get hung up on this. Okay. Done beats perfect every time. Wayne Gretzky was quoted, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. You have to try and fail. Just understand you're going to fail. It's part of the game. It's part of the game. Suck it up, deal with it. Fail, try, fail, try, win. Try, win again. Try, win a third time. Now we got some momentum. Okay, let's go. Now we got traction. Now we got proof of concept. Now we got revenue. Now we got a business. Let's figure out how to scale this. The other thing too is your early adopters will also tell you how to innovate your product. And that's a critical mass too. Now, one of the things that if you're in a service business like me and your product is selling your advice, before you go and create a massive slide deck, and before you go and create this advice stack of all this beautiful knowledge that you want proof of concept. So the way that you test that proof of concept is you go online and you pre-sell your curriculum. You pre-sell your advice. Package your advice up in a nice little ebook or in a presentation or even in a series of videos and pre-sell it. See if people are interested. See if people want that advice. Set it up so that when people go to look at it, they see what they're going to learn. They see what you're all about. They see the value that you're going to add. And then they see what the cost is. And if they decide that they want to make that investment, they'll make that investment through a pre-sale. And so let's say that, you're testing out this curriculum and you got a video series that you want to build and all this stuff on a really cool topic. Well, instead of building the curriculum and then trying to sell it, sell the curriculum first and then build it as you go, right? What do I mean by that? Sell the curriculum and say, okay, so for $250, I'm going to teach you all of the perfect ways of S Corp tax strategies. It's launching in 3 months, 2 months. So $250 pre-sale, get it now for $250. But when it launches, it goes to $1,500. See if your market responds to that, right? If your advice is growing a business, if your advice is the fleet management side of things, if you're whatever that might be, go and talk to several of your potential clients to see and develop what the price point is and to see and develop the proof of concept. If you don't have proof of concept on your first try again. Try a different product, keep trying. Let's say that you have proof of concept, but you're not getting traction. I would say that it's likely that it's difficult for your customers to pay you. Now, I think this is also a really important aspect in business that I've learned is that as I started a business, when I started Clarity Tax, it was several years before I quit. But when I quit, I had to have a way for clients to pay me. So let's say I go and talk to a client and I say, hey, you know what? I can save you a bunch of money in tax. And they say, great. How much do you charge? And I say what the fee is. And they say, great, let's move forward. How is somebody going to pay you? Now, many times, especially in this day and age, take credit cards, Zelle, ACH, PayPal, whatever the situation is, have it ready, have it set up. Have it set up. Make it easy for clients to pay you. Recently, I had a client that was struggling to pay me simply because a lot of his assets were tied up in crypto. And so I actually said, hey, you know what? No problem. I'll take crypto as a form of payment. And he's like, really? Yeah. I gave him my Coinbase wallet. Done. Boom. Got paid. Make it easy for clients to pay you. As you start to develop the traction on the proof of concept, one of the things that I've learned not recently, but one of the things that I continue to see reinforced as part of the success is the businesses that I work with, the things that I buy, the products that I buy, like this chain recently, you might see difference in videos, or even with what I offer, you have to offer your market options. And a perfect example of this is McDonald's. You go to McDonald's is a burger joint, right? But they offer you options related to different sizes of burgers. More importantly, McDonald's is known for their different sizes of beverages. Okay. They have a small, medium, large, and it seems like the small is like huge and the medium is gigantic and the large is a gulp. It's just massive, right? And the price point for each is strategically identified so that you would want the large for the cheapest volume per cost. What this does, though, is as you're offering your customers different options, they get to be a part of the decision of what fits them and what goes along with them. And so a lot more on that topic as it relates to the buying decisions of a potential client with my episode with Ryan Cook. I would encourage you to go back and listen to that one where we talk about a lot of those details. But when you offer a client options and when you offer a certain person options, you have a higher chance of success. I'll give you an example. I was recently buying a necklace from Jaxxon.com, Jaxxon.com. Free plug, shout out. Good job, Jaxxon. When I went to the website, I was shopping for a necklace. Okay. Typical necklace is about $250, $299. And I could buy the necklace and I could buy 4 other designs of different necklaces. I could buy the different lengths and things like that. But what they did really well was they said, "Hey, because you're a first time customer, we're going to give you 50% off a matching bracelet right here." Okay. Now, that's awesome. That's great. Because what happened? Not only did I buy the necklace, but I also bought the bracelet, which means they made more money. Okay. And I also bought one for a good friend of mine recently. And I was a return customer at that point. So they offered me different options to engage with their product. How does this work with you? If you offer a product, offer a combo of the product. Okay. So if you're a phone case, offer a screen protector as well. Offer a charging cable as part of that combo, right? If you're a service and you're selling your advice as part of your product, consider offering an entry level, a regular level standard package, and then a premium level. Because there are people out there that want all about, they love what you have. They want everything that you have to offer. And they are willing to pay that premium level so that they get that premium level interaction from you because they really want you to be part of their stuff. So offer a low point entry, offer a medium, and then offer a luxury. Offer a standard, offer a luxury. Now, some of you guys are sitting back saying, you know what, this is all great stuff. I'd like to take the first step, but I'm scared. And so I want to go through a couple of questions that you might have and give you some advice based on these questions. And so the first question is was it scary to leave my old job? Yes, it was very scary to leave my old job. However, I had to do it. I knew exactly what clients I would target. I knew how long it would take and to get new clients in my company. And I knew the value that I could bring was substantial. And I knew that I could do it, but I was scared because I didn't know how long it would take for me to get my first client and for me to actually have money in the bank from clients. And so I think that goes to the next question is did I have any money saved up before I started? And the answer is yes. And when you're thinking about leaving a corporate job, you have to do a lot of planning as it relates to finances. You have to do a lot of planning as it relates to business development and sales and all this stuff, but you also have to worry about your personal finances. You have to make sure that you have enough money in the bank to weather through the storm. Now, for in my situation, I knew that it would take anywhere between 30 days to as long as 6 months to find my first customer. So I needed at least 6 months of reserves in my cash accounts in order for me to feel comfortable about leaving. Now, don't let that deter you, okay? Because if you're in a toxic environment like I was, I didn't have 6 months of reserves. I had maybe 3 months of reserves. Now, but I still had to leave. I still had to leave the toxic environment. It wasn't healthy. I have such a better quality of mental health. It's crazy. So I'll say it this way. Go back to the plan and create a plan for when you leave. Now, what does that look like? And I think that part of the plan that you create for when you leave your existing job to go create a new job, you have to think about, okay, so is the business that I'm starting, is it a day job? Is it a night job? Is it a weekday job? Or is it a weekend job? Because there's a lot of opportunities for people to take advantage of. If you're selling cars on the weekend, or if you're in the entertainment industry where the mass public is off work because they're all working weekdays, you can work weekends to live and survive. And then you work weekdays to develop your product and develop your business. And it works opposite. If you're trying to sell a product on the weekends and develop a business on the weekend, you can work a weekday job to live and survive. Have that plan ready to go. So if you're in a corporate job, say, okay, so I need money for personal living. I need money to grow the business. Do I continue to work? When can I work on the business? Can I work on the business on the weekend while I'm not working at my other job? What if I have to work on my business during the weekday? Can I get a weekend job to offset the cost efficiencies? Have that plan in place. Understand, and then run some assumptions. I'm going to do this activity for this long, and I expect this result from this activity. Okay. Again, most of the time that's going to be sales. So you're going to do sales and marketing, sales and marketing, sales and marketing. And then as I do sales and marketing, I'm going to assume that I'm going to get some revenue in the door from sales and marketing. Because if I'm not getting that revenue in the door, then I need to change my product. Then I'm going to get some sales. How long should it take for some sales to get? You should be able to see sales within two weeks to a month. If indeed your product is actually worth anything, right? Anything longer than that, that means that it's going to take a high level of market penetration, a high level of energy and effort to penetrate the market, to get to marketplace, to understand what kind of product you have. Maybe that product would be good, but not when you're trying to launch a business, because you need money now and you need to launch a business right away. You need sales immediately. Some of you guys are sitting back thinking, Jeremy, I'm already way ahead of you. I've been in business, but I'm stuck and I'm frustrated and I'm lost. I'm overwhelmed. What do you do when you feel like giving up? What I do when I feel like giving up is I take a breath. Okay. And I recognize what's happening, because what's happening is a season. It will be over. Now, take a step away, go get a drink of water, go do something like that. One of the funnest things and best things that I've learned that really gets me recharged is I go work out, I go for a walk, or I go for a run, or I put some roller skates on or something like that. And I put a really good audiobook on and I listen to an audiobook. 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, Buy Back Your Time, Atomic Habits, Think and Grow Rich, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, just to name a few. All awesome books. Listen to a couple of chapters and then hit back to it. Understand that you have energy levels and you got to blend with your energy levels. So what I'm doing now is, in order to avoid the feeling of burnout and, oh man, I'm giving up, I just recognize that it's a low energy level. And so recognizing that it's a low energy level helps me understand what the root cause of the problem is. Because then now when I do have a high energy level, I can tackle the same problem that I was stuck on. And I'm usually able to overcome it, and not just overcome it, but actually take care of it much quicker than I would have had I just muscled through on a low energy level. Big deal there. To kind of go off of that, how do I keep going? Even though I'm feeling stuck and I feel stuck, listen, welcome to business. Every business owner that I've ever worked with thinks about giving up at least once a month. It's just part of the game. Okay. Keep going. How do you keep going? Develop a routine. In Atomic Habits, it talks about routine. And one of the things that I've been able to take from Atomic Habits that I've worked in my own personal life is, I really wanted to go and develop a healthier lifestyle. And I wanted to work out and do weightlifting more and more, more so than I was. Okay. So what I decided was, and what I saw in the book Atomic Habits, is combine your habit and combine the thing that you're trying to accomplish with a trigger. Everything carries a trigger. Make it obvious, make it easy, right? So for me, the trigger was, I wanted to work out in the mornings, but I was too busy drinking coffee, watching the news. I drink coffee all the time. So what I found out was, okay, so I'm going to drink 1 cup of coffee. I'm going to wake up. And then as I go for my second refill, as the Keurig is making the second cup of coffee, I'm going to go get ready into my gym outfit so that when I come back down, my second cup of coffee is ready. I'm going to take a sip and I'm going to go to the gym. What that did for me was that every time I wanted a second cup of coffee now, but I was too lazy to go get my gym clothes on, that second cup of coffee reminded me, no, Jeremy, as this is brewing, as you're sitting there waiting and looking at the cup of coffee, go get your gym clothes on. Go to the gym. Go to the gym, even if it's for 5 minutes. Go do a little bit of work. Go do 10 push-ups. Go do 10 sit-ups. Go do something. Because when you start small, that small ends up generating a lot of momentum. And ironically, what's funny about this situation is, every time I go to pour a second cup of coffee now, if I did not go to the gym that day, I remember and say, this is my second cup of coffee. I have to go to the gym. So develop a small habit, develop a small little trigger that it can interact in your day. Everybody wakes up and cruises social media. So when you cruise through 10 posts, say, okay, so I've cruised through 10 posts. I'm on my 11th post, or I'm on my 5th post, whatever it is. Move on to micro learning, or move on to what I like to do now is I like to use ChatGPT or Perplexity AI to ask me a business concept question. Teach me a new business concept. Teach me about the 80-20 rule. Teach me about what the core functions of highly successful people are. Teach me about these different things. And I use that as part of my micro-learning concept if I'm just sitting there cruising social media. I encourage you to buy the book, Atomic Habits, read it, understand that one trigger point can have a massive impact on your entire daily ritual, which will also help you keep going. Because now, from that second cup of coffee, when I am able to go change into my gym gear, that second cup of coffee, I am able to go into my gym, work out for 20, 30, 45 minutes, listening to great music, listening to a good audiobook, whatever, learning a new concept. I come back in, I'm charged, I'm ready to go. And that feeling of giving up, that feeling of I can't do this, that feeling of I need a break, all disappear. They all disappear. And I'm like, you know what? I have high energy now. What's the number one thing that I want to tackle right this second? What's the number one thing that's going to take me to the next level of my goals? What's one action I can do right this second that moves forward toward accomplishing what I'm trying to go, toward accomplishing the results that I'm trying to generate for myself? That's what keeps me going all the time. If someone is sitting here telling me, Jeremy, I want to quit my job, but I'm scared, the biggest answer for that is you have to have a plan. Don't just quit your job and go and start from scratch. Have a plan. Do some testing. Have a plan. Execute the plan. Okay? Expect the plan to fail, by the way, but always innovate the plan, because your first plan never works out. But the successful elements of the first plan go to build the foundational elements of the second plan. So then that trial and error process continues going forward. The biggest mistake that you need to avoid when starting a business is thinking that your product is perfect, thinking that your product everybody needs. That's the biggest mistake. The second biggest mistake is not trying. You have to try. You have to sell. Sell it at a farmer's market. Sell it on a website. Start a Shopify store. Whatever that is. Take that first step. You have to try. You have to try. You guys have been with me for a long time today. I really appreciate you listening. If my son was listening to this today and someone had asked me, well, Jeremy, what advice would you give if you want your son to start a business? I would give him all these same things, all this same advice, but I would tell him, try something and always start with sales. So whatever you try, whatever business you're trying to go into, try the first step. And the first step is go sell something. Go sell whatever you're trying to sell, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, go try. Okay. And think about the things that get you excited. Think about the things that fuel your passion. Think about the things that you can do for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours without a break. Those are the things that are going to propel you forward and fuel your energy levels to create a successful business. Take those things, figure out how to monetize them, figure out how to sell them, figure out how to package them so that people can buy from you, and make it easy for people to buy from you. Big deal there. A lot of people miss that. Guys, I'm so glad you joined me today. If you found anything helpful in this, I want you to take 60 seconds, write it down, think about who needs to hear this, and send it to them. Subscribe to the channel, hit like, drop me a comment, and tell me what your favorite moment was. For me, my favorite moment is always when you start a business, you have to sell. You always have to sell. Number one key is always have to sell. So take 60 seconds and figure out what that next action is for you, what that trigger inflection is for you, and take one small step toward your next goal. Until next time, I'm Jeremy Lindsey, and keep combing the couch of life for those hidden quarters that are stuck in between those cushions. Have a great day.